The 5G auctions are upon us. Communications Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw recently said that DoT is moving ahead with the previously decided timelines for 5G auctions, which means auctions could be held as early as next month in June, and rollouts will take place later this year. The TRAI recently also brought down prices of 5G spectrum by 36%, but the industry still finds the pricing too high. So what's the way forward? Will 5G take off and provide the stimulus, the fundamental building blocks for India's digitally connected vision? To talk about the industry viewpoint ahead of the 5G auctions, we're now joined by Lieutenant General Dr. S.P. Kochar, who is the Director General of the Cellular Operators Association of India. Mr. Kochar, thank you very much for joining in. My first question is, has the Department of Telecom, the DoT, or their arm, DCC, accepted the TRAI's 5G recommendations on pricing?
Thank you for getting me on the show. Really speaking, I don't know what the DCC has done because we don't have any communication from them, nor are we part of the deliberations.
Why do you say the pricing is very high, sir? It's been brought down by 36%.
True, it has been brought down, but please understand that when we made our recommendations, we wanted it to be brought down by 90%, and it was not off-the-cuff remark. There were a lot of deliberations which went into that. And before we wrote, we were very clear that what we are writing has some logic behind it. The logic, you must understand, emanates from the fact that this is not a 4G era. This is a 5G era where the ROI on investments which are going to be made, and these are huge investments, will take a lot of time. We don't find any use cases worth the while around the corner. So it'll be a few years actually before return on investment will happen. But the robust rollout of networks, as you mentioned, cannot wait for that point of time. Cannot wait let the applications come first and then we will roll out the network. In that case, it's the cat chasing the mouse and vice versa. So this is the network rollout has to happen in anticipation of robust applications, and the applications will come after some time, but the investments have to be made today. So that is why we are asking for reduction in spectrum prices, because that happens to be the maximum cost that TSP has to incur in the rollout.
So you're saying that we could see the bidding by the telecom operators a bit selective. Now, the industry forecast was that if you want a strong pan-India coverage, then you must bid for at least 100 megahertz of 5G spectrum, which entails an outgo of, close to about $4.5 billion for per operator, going by the current pricing. Do you think the operators have the bandwidth, the balance sheet to go ahead and bid?
How much can they invest would depend on when can they start getting returns on that, or at least they can recover that money. That now has a question mark has come on that because of pricings which have been recommended by TRAI. But the question is how much spectrum will get utilized, how much area will get covered. That would depend on company to company basis. They will decide as to how much can they afford and how much waiting can they do. So that will be a business decision which will be taken by each company individually.
But at these prices, do you think we will have a pan-India rollout?
Difficult to say, but I don't think it'll be as robust a pan-India rollout as would have happened had the prices gone down as per our anticipation.
You said that the return on investment at these prices is not going to be, at a level that one would have hoped for. The ecosystem, the use cases are still not developed. Could you elaborate on that point?
You see, there was a conference held very recently in Barcelona, the Mobile World Congress. And there we interacted, not only we, but also the chairman TRAI interacted with operators from countries where 5G has been rolled out 2 years back. When they rolled out 5G, they were also gung-ho and they thought that maximum profits or the maximum consumption of 5G services will be by enterprises. And they were expecting maximum revenues to come from enterprise business. Unfortunately, their assumptions went wrong, even in developed countries. And we came to know that almost about 80% of the revenue still comes from retail consumers, even with 5G. and it is only about 20% which has picked up in the enterprise business. In India, that this is going to get accentuated because India is not as highly industrialized as those countries are, and therefore even if industry wants to take this up, there is no industry really speaking of that type except for a few pockets here and there who can become consumers of 5G from the day it is rolled out. So the rollout and embracing of 5G services by industry will be dependent on the speed with which Industry 4.0 rolls out, with the speed with which fiber rolls out, and business cases develop. Till that time, possibly we'll have to remain content with retail business, and which is not going to increase our revenues too much.
So if retail, if consumers like you and me will drive 5G adoption globally and even in India, once the rollout takes place and then services are live, will telcos be able to make more money from retail users of 5G?
In India?
Yes, and globally, if you could share the experience?
See, globally, the market is not so price sensitive. In India, we are in a very price sensitive market. And if somebody has to take 5G services with whatever they offer at a higher price, then most of the segment will think twice. There will be a segment which will take it up. But most people will say that I can do with 4G, why should I pay a little extra to get 5G? And even if the tariffs don't go up, even the cost of device at least will be something that they will have to bear. So those are the things we have to factor in, and we have to be very careful that the retail market is an expanding market. But the expansion of retail market also depends on various other factors, like the fiber rollout, like towerization, fiberization of towers, and then apps to run on the networks in rural areas, which are picking up, but which are not picking up at a speed that it will instill too much of confidence in the short term for 5G adoption by retail to the extent that our investments are justified.
So consumers will have to pay more for 5G handset for the device, but not necessarily more by way of their monthly bills to the telecom operators, right? For 5G services, is that the correct assessment?
You're putting words into my mouth, but that is not the way it is. Whenever tariffs are decided, we have to take into account various factors like input costs, and one of the biggest input cost is spectrum. And then we have to see the market conditions, and we have to also see the social requirements of consumers. If you put all of that into a cauldron, it is a difficult situation.
It is a tightrope walk between pricing as well as industry viability, both from a government point of view and even for the telecom operators, Mr. Kochhar. Thank you, Mr. Kochhar, for your time as well as insights. It's been a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.